Welcome back, viewers. I'm your host, Father Naki, with a prayer. May Allah keep you all safe, healthy, and blessed. We do have a respectable guest, Sister Sakina Datu, with us, and we will be discussing the situation within Gaza, some important updates on Iran, Israel, and US situation, and we will try to understand the current role of resistance at the moment, what's going on in the region, and how all of it is connected with Muharram al Haram as well. Assalamu alaikum, Sister Sakina. I'm really honored to have you on the show. Thank you so much for joining us today. Really grateful for your time. And first of all, Sister, how would you like to share you? Because obviously you are also doing a very important show in which you are connecting to the ladies and females of Palestine and discussing like women of resistance, all the situation over there. So, how would you like to share the current updates on the situation of Gaza at the moment? Because we are seeing that there is no ceasefire going on. There is every day like 100 plus people are roughly being martyred. So, how do you see this genocide? What's going on at the moment, and do are we going to have any situation in which the ceasefire would happen? What is the current status?
Walaikum salam, Sister Faiza. Always an honor to join you. The situation in Gaza is really dire. I mean, I know we've been saying these words for a long time now, and we keep saying things are worse. But, when we don't expect things to get any worse, they actually do. Like you mentioned, I speak to all these women in Gaza on a weekly basis, and the distress call they are sending me now is really something that I can't even begin to explain. They are basically telling me clearly in lifetime that they are starving. Their children are dying because there is no food, there is no water. A sister sent me pictures of her boiling some water, and covering it up, and she says my kids are crying, and every time they ask me, I'm telling them that I'm cooking, but in reality there is nothing in this pot because I don't have anything to cook. So it really is a terrible situation. I don't think human beings have ever stooped down to this level, whereby the rest of the world, we are all enjoying so many different facilities, so much food. There is surplus of food in a lot of places. In countries such as ours, I tell you, Sister Faiza, people are struggling with issues of weight. We are looking for solutions on how to eat less, what can make us eat less. And yet we have this part of the world, a small enclosed prison, where children are dying of starvation. It really is a bad situation over there. So in the latest, of course, the ceasefire has stalled, because while as usual, you cannot trust the Zionist entity or even the Americans when they talk about these ceasefires. These are just attention grabbing headlines, but in reality they have no intention of coming up with anything solid. They have been, since actually they announced the ceasefire, they have been bombing more. And they get these people, where aid is now. It has been proven that these areas where they were distributing aid, the whole point was like getting people, when, for example, sometimes we put traps when we've got rodents in our houses. You put a bit of cheese there, and you're pulling or attracting the mice to come to the food, and then this is where you trap them. This is what is happening with human beings in Gaza. They give out these food parcels, and there are specific points where people are asked to go and collect food, and when they reach there they are shot dead, literally. Children, women, men, they are being massacred everywhere. And now the idea is, because lately what happened is the resistance forces inside of Gaza have been also dealing quite a huge blow to the IDF, through the IOF soldiers. So they are ambushing them, and then they are killing them. So now the idea is to move everybody. They want to remove everyone from Gaza into a small, tents outside the Rafah. And this basically means ethnic cleansing. There is no other way of describing this. This is ethnic cleansing to be able to take over the Gaza Strip. Of course, the women I speak to continuously tell me that, they are not going to leave, they are not going to go anywhere. And these are not women who are sitting in a comfortable position saying this. These are women who have already lost children, who have already lost husbands, who have nothing. They are in tents whereby they show you the rashes on the skin because, it's a heat season now. There's mosquitoes everywhere biting the children. The tents become like, extremely like oven hot in this weather. And just this week, Israel has now announced that there's control over the sea too, that people are not allowed to take a dip into the sea. So children who used to go and cool down, are not allowed to enter water anymore. So this barbarism really has got to a point whereby each and every one of us have to question our humanity. What kind of a world and a life are we living whereby fellow human beings, I mean, apart from the fact that they are part of our ummah and our Muslim brothers and sisters, these are human beings. How can we continue to watch human beings treated like that? I sometimes really despair, and I know we should not despair because this isn't something that Islam tells us to do. We've got to, when we are feeling low, is exactly the time when we need to gather our strength and we need to fight on. But some days I find it very difficult to sleep when I get these messages from the women. There is a way to help them. If anybody is interested, they are looking for basic, donations, and there are secure ways of getting money to them. There are GoFund sites. Of course, what you send, almost 50% of it is taken away in admin fees, but still something reaches them. A kilo of flour in Gaza today costs 30 pounds. And women are saying all we need is flour. So if anybody does want to, I can send out the links. And these are personally the women that I know and speak to on a daily basis. But the situation is really, really bad.
Mhm. Just in case, I'm not sure. I've been watching somewhere. It was kind of news or whatsoever. I don't know. It's on social media or in somewhere in news outlet. I mean, there was something they were mentioning that the flower they are getting in the sense of aid through aid trucks or whatsoever. I'm not sure exactly, but you may be aware of it or something like that. That they are kind of inducing it with some drug or whatsoever, that if they eat that they would get drugged or maybe addicted or get into some kind of disease or whatsoever. So do you think there is any truth in that thing, or it's just humor or just a story? Because I have seen that somewhere. I'm not sure exactly.
So it is true, but this is the flower that is coming through the Western aid. So anything that is being sent, through America or facilitated by the Zionist entity itself, it has been proven that some of it was laden with drugs. Which can harm, but there is a huge black market that is going on in Gaza at the moment. So the flower that we, these women buy, that we send money for, this is smuggled in, through Egypt, and the black market. And that in itself is a huge issue, because imagine that there is starvation going on, and these people from Egypt who are able to either bribe the soldiers, at the borders and get in, or through other means are able to penetrate into Gaza, and they take these, flour and other products over there. They are actually, selling them at almost more than 10 times, sometimes 20 times the price. So they are using these, these times, these extremely difficult times on Gazans to make money. And these are obviously fellow Muslims going in from Egypt and stuff. So you can see the rot of the human morality, the stage we have reached. However, there is flour is available, the clean one, which is not infected with drugs, and this is the one which is smuggled in mostly through the Rafah border, through Egypt. But it's extremely expensive. So The women I speak to do tell me that when they get money, they do buy this flour, and they're able to make bread out of it, and at least that feels, even though it's not nutritious, only to be eating flour, but the kids are starving, people are starving, so this is something that fills them up easily, the bread, and they're able to sustain themselves.
Okay. Sister, what would you like to share about? I mean, obviously, situation within Gaza is very painful. We'll come back to it later on. And how, moving on to the next part, is like, what is the situation going on between US and Iran negotiations? And we have been watching news and things like that, in which maybe Israel is planning to some attack on Iran as well. So how do you see that situation? Do you think in future we are going to see some more attacks like that, or it's not going to happen, or maybe it could? I mean, how do you see this situation, and how do you see the negotiations stuff regarding nuclear with US and Iran? Are they going to have any more discussions? Because Rebel Sayyid Ali Khamenei said that they don't want, but obviously the administration or the politicians in Iran, they might be going to discuss this in further details with them or whatsoever. So how do you see this these two aspects?
So the war between Iran and Israel US, which is basically the same entity, is not over. Do we expect bombings to happen again? Almost definitely yes. But for the time being, what has happened is that I think they hugely miscalculated. So Israel, when it convinced it started bombing Iran. This is towards the whole project of Greater Israel. So obviously, they have this foreign policy. This is not even something that Trump or Netanyahu are doing it like as in one off, or it is their decision. The US has a foreign policy which was put together 30 years back. If you listen to Professor Jeffrey Sachs, he talks about this and explains it because he's connected very deeply, and knows, he's personally been involved in all these different institutions. 30 years back, they had decided to take out five countries to basically have a regime change or in five countries, including Libya, Syria, Lebanon. So four of these have already fallen. The one remaining is Iran. So the plan has been there for the past 30 years to take out Iran, and they are looking for the right time to do that. Now Netanyahu, of course, thought this was the best time, and because this is for Netanyahu, the issue is also self-preservation. The moment he stops the wars everywhere, including ceasefire in Gaza, which is why we don't see it happening, he's facing court charges. So it is in his personal interest to keep the war going, because during the war they cannot prosecute him. But also, Iran is the only challenge to the Zionist entity in the region. There is no other one other than, of course, Yemen, and limitedly the resistance aspect of Lebanon. But by themselves, these nations are not able on their own to tackle the Zionist entity. So they know that it is Iran who supports all the resistance factions, and who openly, speak out against the even the existence of the Zionist entity. So Iran is Israel's biggest enemy, and they saw an opportunity this time and thought that they will take Iran out. Also, before doing this, for the past many years, they had sent in their assets into Iran, which means basically that they had a lot of their infiltration of people who were spying for Israel, but also who were creating internal problems in order to weaken the government and the institutions. So when we heard cases such as Masa Amini, for example, these were all instigated by people who had the interest of trying to destabilize and create revolution from within in Iran. And they miscalculated. They thought that there was enough now had happened, and once they start bombing, and especially if they start killing the leadership of Iran, then the people will riot and will stand against the country. But also they thought that, with all the weapons that America has, when it gets involved, they'll be able to really destroy Iran. And they were in for a shock on both fronts, because Iran exhibited the, weaponry and the military might that none of them expected. Another 2 weeks, if this war had continued, Israel would have been finished, literally finished. They were hit so badly by Iranian missiles, that in a way that they did not expect at all. And that is the reason, apart from asking, the US to get involved, they also were asking for a ceasefire, because they could not continue this war. Their Iron Dome, which they always thought was completely something that was invincible, collapsed. And they only had enough for the next 2 weeks to control, to even fight back and to capture the missiles. So on one hand, on the other hand, the way the country came together and people rallied against, with the flag, was something they did not expect. So what has happened post war is that Iran has become stronger. Not only internally, the unity that was, lacking, has now cemented, is become stronger. um, and also all these people and assets and intelligence that was there, Iran has realized how much of a problem this was, and has started cracking down on them, which is a good thing, because now, they're cleaning up their house. On the military front, obviously, and Trump says he has obliterated the nuclear enrichment. It's anyone's guess, how much was obliterated. The Rahbar has always said that they are not creating weapons. What they are doing is enriching uranium for peaceful purposes, and this will continue. This will continue because no country can dictate to a sovereign nation what they can and cannot do on peaceful purposes. So actually, even weapons, if you look at the double standards we live in, Israel, America itself, the Western countries, Pakistan, India, they all have got nuclear weapons, but only Iran should not have nuclear weapons. Now, of course, Iran itself, for its own reasons, doesn't want to do this, but nobody should be able to dictate to them. So what is happening now? What's happening now is that they have realized they cannot hit so easily Iran directly. So they are trying to destabilize the region. And one of the things that we see is the destabilization of Syria. At the moment, as we speak, there is this massive fights happening between the Jolani, army, and the Druze community. Now, this is very interesting, because the Druze had made a pact with the Zionists, and they were supposed to protect them. And Jolani also is obviously, merged with the Zionists, which is why there is a process of trying to normalize relations between Israel and Syria. But they are also fighting within themselves and killing. So this is all a Zionist game. They are not for anyone. They do not protect anyone. They are using everybody for their own purposes. And as these people inside Syria, there is a civil war and they start fighting themselves, Israel is able to come in more and more, take more and more land, control different strategic areas. And the idea is that from Syria, it is very easy now to attack Iraq and then Iran. So this is the game that is going on, because they've realized that they cannot attack Iran directly through the air, because Iran has got strong military power. So also at the same time, Lebanon, there is a constant bombing of Lebanon, because they are trying to destabilize the resistance over there too, so that they can have the control of the whole region. So we have not seen the last of attacks on Iran. But also
Yes.
Iran, on the other hand, of course, is not a weak country. In terms of negotiations, at some point the negotiations will happen. Most people, including myself, believe that this is not the right time. It's too early. Even if there are any discussions that are happening, whatever resolutions they come with cannot be trusted, because these entities can never be trusted. So yes, Iran
True.
can go to the table, can have the talks, can sign whatever they want, but they always have to stay ahead of the game and know that Americans cannot be trusted.
True. Sister, how about the Ibrahim Accord? Because as you mentioned in your recent point as well, like obviously, many countries are like Syria is about to accept, for example, Israel. In the same way, there's Ibrahim Accord discussion was going on as well. Just in case if you have something in mind, you can share that. And this same discussion is going on in Pakistan as well. So if you have any kind of idea about that as well, if they are going to accept Israel very soon, or I mean, practically they have accepted many countries when they are giving their airspaces, doing everything they want, and they couldn't stop the war in past 2 years, and still our children are dying and being martyred by these Zionist entities. So it looks like they have accepted practically, but it's just that the formality. So do you think it would happen? I mean, if it would happen, what difference would it create? I mean, generally speaking, I mean, saying that okay, we have accepted this and that. And how about the Netanyahu administration itself? As you have previously mentioned, he is trying to avoid all the prosecution being I mean, he is being prosecuted in his own country as well, and people are hating in within his own country as well. And situation after the war is very very terrible in Israel. They have never seen anything, any kind of destruction in past, like you can say in history, you can say in other words, over there. So how do you see the situation over there with Netanyahu, and from that perspective, like how much loss they have attained and how they are dealing with it? Because we are also seeing that Europe, America, UK, all these countries are also like it's like they are giving all the weapon and stuff which they needed to maybe attack in future on Iran or whatsoever. So how do you see these situation? How do you analyze these aspects regarding that?
So let's start with that second part, which is, what's going on inside of Israel. Now, mind you, people are against Netanyahu because there's a lot of corruption cases that are pending, on him. So, a lot of people also believe that this war, is going on. Well, it is going on because he wants to protect himself. That is one of the reason. And there was a short spell when there was a ceasefire, and the cases were being revived, and that is the reason why obviously he and his wife are well known to be quite corrupt, and have a lot of charges against them. So there are many people who are against him, but also this should not be equated to people being against the genocide in Gaza. Majority of the citizens of the Zionist entity support the war against Gaza, and they actually want to see Gaza fall. They do support the ethnic cleansing of the Gazans, and they do want that land. So even though they have an issue with Netanyahu and his corruption on its own, almost most of them are supportive of the genocide that is going on. So just to put that in context. Now, there is the society over there is a very we say it's like a spider's web. They are very weak. What the reason why they go from all these European countries to settle in Israel is because things like they get free housing over there, they get a lot of benefits, they live by the sea, they've got a very comfortable, very easy, nice life over there. Now, all along, they have believed that Israel was invincible with this Iron Dome, and everywhere they were protected. So they can continue, putting all sorts of, difficulties on the Palestinians, including we saw that when there was massive hunger going on, a few months back, on the other side, just literally on the other side of the wall, they would have massive barbecue parties, and this is to taunt, because the smell of the meat that is cooked and everything wafts into the starving people. So you can see how barbaric and how devoid of any humanity these people are. Now, what happened with the Iranian war is, of course, this idea of them being invincible was shattered. They were constantly living in the shelters. Initially, there was a more of a pattern of when they would go to the shelter because they would hear the sirens. And then the Iranians were mixing up, these sirens. So it was like, if it was expected that the siren would go on for 1 minute before, the launch of the missile, it started playing up. Sometimes 30 seconds, sometimes 45 seconds. So they messed up with their heads, and they constantly had to, literally, if you, there are many interviews that they have given, the people inside Israel, and talking about how mentally exhausting and mentally torturing the Iranian missiles were on them. And so, post that, because now they know that they are not safe, and now, even the Hamas inside is fighting with this IOF, many of them have left. And many others are leaving. During the Iranian war, Israel actually closed the borders, and the airport and airspace, so people could not come out. And this is how fragile it is, that not only are they, stopping the Gazans from coming out, but their own people were also held hostage, because they were scared that if everybody leaves, then there is no Israel left. So people now are leaving a lot. Many of them have gone to Cyprus. And we've had reporters, who speak to us in Cyprus, who are telling us that in mass, a lot of them are buying now properties in Cyprus. And some of them, there's actually a plan to build a very big school over there. Now, this tells you that if you're building a school, they are thinking of a bigger community settling there, and also more permanent one. So now they are actually talking of taking over another country. And Cyprus are also very, very nervous about this, because obviously they fear that their land is next to be taken away. But the concept is also, a lot of them have come back. Those who went from Europe, from America, have returned. uh, and they do not have any convictions. You see, on the side of the Gazans, when they talk to you, they tell you, we are rooted to this land, we are people of resistance, we have faith in God, and we will not leave this place come what may. We are not scared of death, because whether we live or die, we are winners. Because in Islam, a martyr is not considered to be a defeat. It's an honor to be a martyr. But there is no similar concept for Israelis. They fear death, all of them. They do not want to die. They want to live luxuriously in this world. And so the mindsets are very different. So many of them are running away. Now, of course, what will happen if the war was to stop? I really think that it will implode from within. There are so many issues inside Israel, and that the infighting between themselves, people running away because they cannot handle the situations. It will implode from within. And this is probably one of the reasons why they are not allowing a ceasefire to happen and things to go to normal. So now, I mean, a long answer, but on the issue of the Abraham Accords, the Abraham Accords has been something that the US, the Western countries, and Israel have been working on for a very, very long time. When these Muslim countries accept to normalize relations with Israel, is basically a license and an acceptance that this is no more an illegitimate state. At the moment, the state of Israel is still considered illegitimate by majority of the UN countries, almost, many of them, with the exception of some Western countries. And so it does not have global legitimacy. What it also means that it cannot open easily embassies and trade, or even have, normal relations, such as having cultural centers and stuff like that. They still have trade, but it is mostly limited to higher level, because we know that all these Muslim countries, their leadership is compromised. But the local population is still not accepting to normalize relations with Israel, which would basically means that they are recognizing it as a legitimate state. So I think there is nervousness, especially now while this genocide is ongoing. Countries like Saudi Arabia and Qatar and Egypt are aware that if they were to go that extra step, they might have revolutions within their own countries, because people are sick and tired. It's not even Muslims. You can see even here, people who are non-Muslims, people are watching this and saying, what is going on? We can't continue having this. So they do want to normalize because of their own personal interests, but they are scared of the populations. In places like Jordan, for example, there is a massive population of Palestinians who also live there. So it's very easy to have revolutions and to, throw these dictators and governments over there. What they are trying to achieve, therefore, I think, is process. And one of the process they are pushing for, and I know that a lot of these countries like Saudi Arabia have told Trump that we need a ceasefire first. We need this genocide to end. Once things calm down, then we can move on to the next step, which is normalization. However, like I said, even though it is in their interest of the US and Israel to do that in the long term, at the moment, because any kind of a ceasefire means the end of Netanyahu, he is not allowing that to happen.
That's very true. Sister, how do you see the recent sanctions of UN expert Francesca Albanese, who was being sanctioned for whatever reason by US? And at one way, if we compare it with Julani, for instance, I mean, obviously there is no in it, technically it doesn't make any sense, but if we look at it in the sense that they made a terrorist a country ruler, and on the other side they are putting sanctions on a true researcher or whoever is dealing with real facts. So how do you see this situation? How horrified US or these entities are from the truth, whereas in one way, if we look at it in different dimensions, like in one way they are scared of truth, and they don't want it to be out on the within the people. They don't want it. And other way, they are so much brave to kill anyone, to make a terrorist as a country ruler, and shaking hand and asking them to come into the country. And these are the how do you see these things? And how do you see the as we are also obviously concluding the show, just we have, I think so, 5 6 minutes left. So how would you like to conclude the whole discussion and the role of our community, especially during the Muharram, when we are celebrating and obviously commemorating Imam Hussein's Azadari and all that? So how do you see this 10th days we have spent so far? I mean, more than it's like 21st of Muharram now, but generally the first 10 days of Muharram, and the message which has been conveyed to the people regarding this genocide. How do you see collectively these things?
So very quickly, the issue with Francesca Albanese, it's shocking but not surprising. This is the usual, double standards of the West, which many of us have been aware of for a very long time. But I think more and more people are waking up to the reality now. You mentioned Jolani. Of course, Jolani was on the terrorist list, for a very long time, and he's just changed garment. He's now wearing suits, so he's become he's no more a terrorist and has become a partner and a leader of a sovereign country. So these are the usual double standards of the Western countries, whereby everything is to do with imperialism for their own interest. The lectures that they give to the entire world about human rights and democracy, this is all a farce. And we have seen in these 2 years how much of a farce that is. So genuinely, these are all games. And so anything that comes out from the Western leaders and from the Western media, everybody should take that with a pinch of salt. I have issues with Muslims still really relying on the Western media, not just Muslims, but any person who is a person of conscience, because we still tend to believe these imperialist, institutions. Look for your news elsewhere. Go to alternative media, and go to social media and see what the reality is, because all of them are in this pact to ensure that imperialism and colonialism continues. UK, of course, major part of that colonialism. And so, yes, we live in this country, and I find it very difficult. I see people who commemorate Muharram. We've been through these mourning days. We keep reviving the story of Imam Hussein, and yet, when the time has come to implement the messages of Imam Hussein, we are still debating. And I hear this from people saying, at least, yeah, we may not be directly implementing, but it's still a good thing to listen to Imam Hussein. So my issue is, how many years has it been that we've been reviving and retelling this story? This is not to say that we should stop. This is something that every year revives us. It gives us purpose. It reminds us of our goals in life, and there is no institution that of Majalis and that of Muharram. This is a gift to us. This is an absolute miracle that has been given by Imam Hussein to us. So one of the first things, rather than crying for Imam Hussein, is when you sit on the firsh, I would say, say thank you to Imam Hussein. Thank you for giving us the moral compass that we live with on a yearly basis, and it keeps our souls, attached to the truth. But there is, how many years we've been listening to this message and crying over Imam Hussein. Today is a time, the time is here now to be on the side of Imam Hussein. When Imam Hussein said Hal min Nasirin Yansurna, it wasn't only on the day of Ashura. Ashura is every day, Karbala is every land. This call is today out there, and what are we doing about it? And this includes a lot of things within our Muslim community here, and even within the Shia community here. I hear of statements of two-state solution, for example. You know, people in authority in Muslims are still sucking up to the Zionist, imperial government that we have at the moment, and talking about how can we get them to recognize two-state solution, recognize Palestine. Two-state solution is half colonialism. You are still asking for, one nation to have two. If we have a two-state solution, Israel will still control electricity, will still control borders. With their intention of having the great Israel, Palestine will never be free. So for us
Mhm.
to today having, listen to Muharram the whole year, so many years, and still not be able to understand the impact of what that means. And when we make political statements such as these of, let's accept two-state solution, it shows our gullibility, but also our lack of understanding of connecting the message of Imam Hussein, which was basically to liberate a human being against colonialism and imperialism. So my message would be, go beyond. Don't just sit and listen to the majalis without context. Look up, read up, research, and realize that each and every one of us is needed today to answer the call of Imam Hussein and to say labbaik through these other means whereby we are against a genocide and we are against the whole project of imperialism and colonialism.
That's very true, sister. And I would just add one thing is that there are moments when we are supposed to cry, and there are moments when we are supposed to stand up with the truth and take a side, as you mentioned as well, of Husseiniat as well. And Husseiniat teaches us like to stand up with the people who are holding the flag of Husseiniat, as Rebbe Muslim Sayyid Ali Khamenei is doing. And if we are not mentioning the people who are following the steps of Imam Hussein alayhi salam, and who are following the steps of Yazid of our time, and Firaun of our time, and Shimmer, and all these people of our time, then we are not doing justice to this Azadari, even I would say. So this is something we really need to ponder upon, and we should come out of this confusion that we should mention these people or not, or if we mention it, it would be against the sacredness of Azadari. In fact, it would empower more in many ways, in the sense that it teaches us to stand up against the tyrant. So this is something we really need to ponder upon. Thank you so much, Sister Sakina. I'm really honored to have you on the show for this beautiful discussion we had today. Really grateful for your time. And to the viewers, I would say, don't forget the people of Gaza. Don't forget the people, yeah, who are sacrificing everything for truth, justice, and humanity, and for Qibla Awwal as well. So we need to understand this and come out of this confusion, and need to work together on that. Look after yourself and everyone around you. Allah Hafiz.